Hey guys, welcome back to the Jay's Fit Down podcast. Today we have special guests here. We have Patrick Miller and Wayne Poole here of the Ball with Breakfast podcast. Glad to have them on here on Jay's Fit Down to talk some football and just have a good time talking sports here with these guys. But thank you guys for coming on tonight and giving your thoughts and insights.
Glad to be on.
Yeah, thanks, Jaden.
Of course. Guys. So first up, I'm sure you guys have heard the news. Before we get started, though, this isn't football related, but I just have to, give this shout out here to Caleb Martin of the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat are now going to the finals. But he was a huge part of that. So I just wanted to give Caleb Martin a shout out on this podcast. So this dude was undrafted. He's been cut from multiple teams and, been a two-way player in G League, and now he came up, huge for the Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals. So I just got to give him a shout. Man, that's just phenomenal. The grit, determination, persistence. That's amazing. I value that. That's really cool. So I just wanted to say that before we get started.
Yeah, for sure.
Go ahead, Wayne.
Yeah. I'm all for them because, what was it was there a majority of the Miami Heat's points came from undrafted players or something like that, and he just killed it. He was perfect from the field and all. So it'll be interesting what happens in the finals, though.
Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on that. But back to our sport, football. Guys, I'm sure you heard the news though. Jimmy Garoppolo, of course, he signed with the Raiders in the offseason, so he's gonna be the quarterback there. But news just came out recently that if he does not pass his physical, then his contract could be terminated. Big thing there. What do you guys think about that?
Man, at least from my perspective with Jimmy G, the contract could be voided with, what they've got going on with that waiver. It seems like he's got a foot injury. I mean, Jimmy G's no stranger to injuries, to, losing portions of his seasons. And I also think, he's played for some pretty well-coached, well-organized football teams. He's used to having, a great cast surrounding him, used to having an amazing defense for, both teams that he's been a part of so far. I just feel like, with Jimmy G, and I don't know what the expectations really for the Raiders are this season, but, being a 500 football team would honestly be a successful season in my eyes. And, I just think Jimmy G is the kind of guy who can steady the ship in some sort of way. But I feel like you really need, another piece in place to kind of, take this team to another level. And, for them to kind of strike out on the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes. And, it seemed like, foregoing a lot of quarterback, talent in the draft. It was kind of a head scratcher looking at the Raiders and what they're, kind of outlining for the seasons ahead. But to give that guy 3 years at the money that they did, I think you need to have the team ready to go. That's a New York Jets type move, I would say, off the bat. But in general, we'll see what happens with Jimmy G. I mean, you can expect a decent level of quarterback play if he's healthy. But if he's not, Raiders are looking at a pretty tough season, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And I think the wild card, right? I see all these rumors on the Twitterverse and, on random blogs about, well, who just bought into ownership for the Raiders, right? And then who's also could easily slide in. You got a number one wide receiver, right? Yeah, and Devontae Adams. You got a running game in Josh Jacobs. And who likes to have basically a full out all talent in all levels? Tom Brady, right? So, hey, maybe there is some sort of continuity there. I mean, Josh McDaniels obviously has that lineage there with Tom Brady and obviously Jimmy Garoppolo. But, why not? If Jimmy Garoppolo can't go, why not the GOAT, right? So I think that's an interesting topic there.
Could we be seeing another return of the mighty GOAT? Could we see another out of retirement come for Tom Brady? I don't know. He said he was done, but who knows? If anybody could come back, I'm sure it will be him. So that'll be something to keep an eye on, definitely. I like what you guys said though. With the Raiders, they have a solid roster. It's just they just been kind of simmering around there. At some point, are we going to see them take that next that's just the thing about it, and hopefully for them, they if Jimmy is healthy, like you said, Pat, then maybe, we see something there potentially, but I just don't know with the Raiders, and Josh Jacobs still has not gotten his contract extension yet, either. So something also to keep an eye on.
Man, and it's kind of tough when you get to that point with a running back like Jacobs. I mean, we've seen it with Ezekiel Elliott, Austin Eckler. It's like these guys perform, to the best of their abilities. They're top 5 backs in the league. It comes time to, due for them to get their big money contract. In the same way, if you're a team and you're trying to be competitive, you're trying to, take your team to the playoffs or, battle for division championship, conference championships. It's like, is having a $20 million running back like what you want on your books in order to get your team over the hump? And it's like, we look at, where, and I'm blanking on his last name. Why is this happening? Josh, coach of the football team, for Christ's sake.
McDaniels.
Josh McDaniels. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. This guy, he comes from the New England system. He comes from New York, New England blood. It's just like, I cannot see a Patriots, castaway, looking at the running back position, committing those kinds of dollars and saying like, this is where I want to go with the team. And, he's pulling a lot of strings because Jimmy G's under center, Brian Hoyer's under center, Tom Brady's up in the press box. I mean, if it goes to plan B or, maybe plan Brady, he'll have everything that he ever wanted on a football team, field again. But, in general, it's like, it's tough. I mean, Jacobs is definitely worth his money, but same sense, you got Adams, you got other guys that, Max Crosby needs to get paid. Like there's a lot of, high end type guys on this team that just, you can't feed all these guys all at once.
Yeah, that's true. And there were a lot of questions with Devontae Adams and like if he would want it out. And, he, of course, addressed those things like, look, I'm here, Raider Nation, I'm for it, we didn't things didn't go how we wanted to, but he made it clear that he's there to stay. Like Aaron Rodgers didn't make me. I'm my own player. I'm gonna. You guys know what I can do. That's basically what I like how he came out and said that because it is true. I mean, Adams put up very great numbers last year. With Derek Carr. So we'll see what happens there with the Raiders. But moving on to our next segment, guys, just talking about, the New York Giants, of course. They made it to the playoffs last year under Brian DeBoer. It saw some improvements there with Daniel Jones. Still got a ways for them to go. But can New York build off of this season, like of this past season? Can they continue that moving forward? Can we, see the Giants become relevant again?
Yeah, I can take that first stab at it, but I feel like there's going to be some roadblocks there. They have the third. I think I saw that they had like the third strongest schedule going against, so that definitely will be something to look at. And then also, granted, hey, they do have Darren Waller now, Brian Dable, right? Like, I'm pretty sure he can utilize Waller, especially at tight end. They'll definitely do a lot of play action. They still have, Saquon, and then obviously Daniels is pretty good in terms of like bootlegs and play actions like on his feet. So that's where I certainly feel like, yes. And to answer your question there, I think they can. But obviously, there has to be some continuity on the wide receiver front in order for them, in my opinion, to do that, just because they did get Jalen Hyatt, but they haven't really like added too much wide receiver talent. So that's where I'm a little bit skeptical there. But I feel like with Brian Dable, he really knew how to utilize Daniel Jones, get him rolling out, use his legs. So, and then adding in a tight end like Darren Waller, I feel like helps out with a mobile quarterback like Daniel Jones. So, and their defense, they've been just adding talent there. So I feel like they have what it takes, but it's definitely a kind of wait, we'll see. But I feel like with Brian Dable, quality head coach, I feel like so.
Yeah, I feel a lot better about the Giants than I do about the Raiders going into next season. My only problem is that I feel like this is a type of team just with Daniel Jones under center where it's like, I feel like they have 10 to 11 win upside. And I don't see anything higher than that, a ceiling that, really kind of, breaks through everything like a Philadelphia Eagles did, going into last season. I mean, they don't have that kind of, I guess game breaker under center like you have with the Jalen Hurts or the level of defensive depth that I think it takes to kind of push the agenda this year, especially in an NFC East that, is normally pretty competitive. I don't think the Commanders will be very competitive, at all. But with the Cowboys and obviously the Eagles there, it's kind of hard to see them really taking it to the next level. That said, I did like their draft. I thought their top 3 picks, pretty impressive, grabbed a center with John Michael Schmitz. I saw Jalen Hyatt, obviously, Deontay Banks on the outside. I think that, they're adding pieces in the right places, and Brian Daboll is obviously a fantastic coach. I think they're really well coached in that sense. I think they'll play, very hard for him. I think they're committed to one another. It just kind of, you look left and right, and I know Daniel Jones is not exactly what I think most people would call an answer under center. I mean, he's a much different quarterback than a Kirk Cousins, but in a lot of ways, he gives me those kind of vibes of like, he may be able to put up some good counting stats, but at the end of the day, like, would you trust him with the ball in a big game? And it's like, we just haven't seen enough from him yet. And, this will have to be his year. I mean, he'll have to really shine through this year, because it always feels like they're tagging him, they're pushing him along and this and that. But it's like, he really needs to show that, he can play at a different level.
Yeah, I agree. Daniel Jones is a guy, when they took him in the draft, they needed a quarterback. They took him there, and they thought he struggled early in his career with the turnover issues. We all know about that, the fumbling, the interception. He had turnover issues, and now under Brian Daboll in his first year there, we saw that kind of diminish a little bit. I saw somewhat improved play out of Daniel, but it's got to jump up. Specifically because you're in the NFC, East division with the Eagles and the Cowboys. So that's the thing about it with me. They beat the Vikings last year. I didn't think they were going to do it, but they were able to beat the Vikings in the playoffs, and that was huge for him to go in there and get that win. And Daniel showed some great flashes there in that playoff game. So, we'll see about the Giants, man. I don't know. We'll see. So you guys like that Jalen Hyatt pick? You guys think he'll be a really good receiver?
I think so. I mean, in my opinion, I think he will be. And Brian Daboll, I anticipate he'll utilize Jalen Hyatt's strength. Like, I think all the scouting reports that I've read with Jalen Hyatt was that he, maybe not the best route tree, but he can definitely take it over the top. And I think that's kind of what they need. If they're going to play like safeties in, right, for Saquon and also Daniel Jones, that's definitely where I think they needed that burner more so of. And then also adding in Waller, who can definitely stretch the field out of the tight end position. That's where I'm somewhat bullish, but again, it really depends on Daboll and kind of how he can function with his team. Can he, utilize the tools that they have? But I definitely have my doubts still, obviously, with the wide receiver core. Like, if kind of Hyatt and they've had a kind of a makeshift of wide receivers, right? So I think that's my whole thing. It's like they don't have that. They don't have that ace. They don't have that person that they can count on third down and long, right? That's like, I'm just going to chuck it to that person and get it to them. And, Hyatt, for all he's worth, right, he's going to be a rookie. So, he still, again, like I mentioned, like, needs to develop that route tree. So that's definitely where I have some doubts. But, Brian Daboll, I feel like, I definitely trust him. I think given this past year, he utilized the strengths of the team. And that's definitely what you want, an offensive coordinator, head coach, right? Especially for the Giants, since they don't have like A-listers all across the board, right? So,
yeah. I think Hyatt reminds me a lot of Deshaun Jackson, just a guy who can, obviously stretch the field. He's kind of a, deep ball threat. He needs a home run type passer, though. That's the thing. It's like with Daniel Jones, can we really expect him to be able to air it out in that kind of fashion? I mean, if there's obviously, areas where Hyatt just, burns his way through the secondary and he's got some gimmies, then that's great. But it's like, I think what Wayne's alluding to is exactly right. It's like you look across that wide receiver cast. They got rid of Richie James, who I actually thought was a really productive receiver last year. I like Isaiah Hodgins a lot. He's just a guy that's like quietly doing his job and obviously completely overlooked by, scouts, drafters alike. And it's, it's a nice football team. I mean, I think it's like a good roster with a great coach that people could say, yeah, this is going to be a competitive football team. They're going to, push their way maybe toward a playoff berth again. It's just, again, we're looking for that extra, element to them. And I'm just not I'm not sure I'm seeing it. And the only other thing I throw out there, the biggest wild card that's always out there is with Saquon is just his injury history. It's like, I love the guy. He's obviously worth his weight in gold when he's on the field. It's just, man, I don't know. Year after year, I feel like this was his big breakout year finally, and it was, a long time coming. It felt like even in, the short time that he's actually been in the NFL, been active with the Giants.
Yeah, absolutely. And you hate to see it, man. He's such a talented player, so talented of a running back, and what he's able to do with the ball in his hands, but he just is struggling to stay on the field. And last year he was healthy for the most part, and he did look like the old Saquon. Saw flashes of it there, here and there. So hopefully he can stay healthy moving forward for them as much as possible for the Giants there. But staying within the NFC East, guys, I just want to get your thoughts on the Dallas Cowboys. Now we're at a point with Dallas where it's like, come on, like at what point are we going to say, like, with Dallas, I mean, you have a talented quarterback, that you think is the guy, but when it comes to pushing stuff, games line, they're not getting it done. And it's been this way for some time now, almost 30 years. But so, what are you guys' thoughts on that? It's like, can the Cowboys break this cycle? Can they just do something in the postseason? Can they get to that point? Because we know they're a good regular season team, but what can they do to get over that hump?
I mean, I feel like Dak, right? It's all of that.
Exactly.
Yeah. He needs to show up in the playoffs, like, simple as that. So I think that's part of it. It's hard to figure out or find, like, as talented of a team as what the Cowboys have on paper, right? So, it really just depends on if Dak can show up. I think if I remember correctly, I think he showed up pretty well in the first round of playoffs, like, had a pretty good game there. But then after that, was kind of silent there. So that's definitely where I feel like, that is the case. Pollard, definitely, it's nice that he'll maybe getting more of a featured role there a little bit more, because he's just so explosive. But so, yeah, I think just offensive coaching right there, and making sure Dak is set up for success. Because that defense, like, that'll carry that team, I feel like, with Micah Parsons, with Diggs being the, playmaker, turnover machine he is, and the rest of their defense, like, it's pretty stacked overall. So I feel like they'll definitely be kept in games. But, yeah, in the end, I think it'll come down to quarterback play and making sure that, I know they got rid of Kellen Moore, right? I think this offseason. So, what's the game plan now coming up for this coming season? Can they put Dak Prescott and set him up for success, right? So,
yeah, I mean, I like them more on defense than I do on offense, to be honest with you. I mean, to kind of go into the offseason, add Stephon Gilmore, drafted Mozzie Smith up front, kind of pair up with Micah Parsons, who's obviously a monster on the defensive side. I like their secondary and how they're kind of set up. DeMarvion Overshown was another prospect that we were covering out of Texas at linebacker who could also, definitely help in the run game, possibly in coverage too. But, looking on offense, I mean, adding Brandon Cooks, making, Pollard, their starting running back too, I think was a good choice, probably a hard choice for them to make. I don't know what ultimately happens with Zeke, if he'll, come back on some sort of deal to just be, change of pace back or just to kind of split time or, be a leader in the clubhouse and stuff like that. But yeah, again, with Dak, it's hard to know. I mean, I don't know if he's, your alpha. I don't know if he's your, kind of put the team on his back type of quarterback. Now, I mean, does that mean that he can't get by with an amazing team around him? Like, could he be the Matt Stafford, to the Rams a couple of years ago? I mean, could he be a Trent Dilfer in the past with the Ravens in terms of having some sort of elite defense and some decent weapons and being able to kind of push it along? I mean, it puts a lot of pressure on CeeDee Lamb and Pollard to kind of carry, most of the load. But I think in a way, I mean, Dak is not a chump. It's not like, I'm looking at Daniel Jones and Dak. I mean, I definitely take Dak. I wouldn't really think too hard about it, but it's just tough to say. I mean, NFC's gotten a little bit more shallow when you drop Aaron Rodgers over, into the AFC. I mean, the North is up for grabs. The South is actual embarrassment at this point. The West, we're looking at possibly San Fran, Seattle. I mean, to me, it's just like, Philly is the cream of the crop. As long as Hurts stays healthy, I just feel like that's still my team. But in a lot of ways, I mean, you look left and you look right. There's not a lot of teams there that Dallas Cowboys have to compete with it to get their foot into the door of a Super Bowl. It's just, I don't feel it. I'm not feeling it the way I probably should. But they've got a shot. I mean, there's like 4 or 5 teams they think in that NFC that they find themselves within to be able to contend at the next level. And we'll just have to see. Like, can Dak just be steady and just not make major blunders? Like, can he just game manage his way to multiple playoff wins? I think he could. So we'll see. But I think the defense is going to have to be the ones to carry the torch, and offense just get the job done in the way that they can.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're at the point now in the NFL, and you can even say this in college football too, that you have a good defense. Just it's not enough anymore. The way these offenses have emerged, and now we're in this pass-happy league with all the spread. Every team they want to spread you out. They want to create these mismatches in the open field. With these players and how the emergence of these different types of weapons that are getting drafted and coming up through in these different levels. It's just you have to have both. Your offense has got to be able to go down the field and score points. Your defense has got to make stops. And even if your defense does, your offense is not scoring. You're putting your defense in a bad position. And they're having to work on long fields, long drives, and that can just tear them down. That can that will wear them down. So, to me, Dak Prescott, he's good. He is a talented quarterback, of course. I don't think he's a franchise quarterback. I don't think he should be paid as such. I just don't think he's the guy, and I'm waiting for him to prove me wrong. He hasn't done it yet, but he's got to. If the Cowboys are going to do anything, he's got to step it up, and also because if he doesn't, and that could even put Mike McCarthy on the hot seat, because the coach is always going to be a good number of times going to be a scapegoat. So let's see.
Man, it's crazy in today's NFL. I mean, like when we think about, franchise quarterbacks and the way that you put it, it's like Kirk Cousins was top 7, top 8 in almost every passing category last year. And it's like, you ask anybody out on the street, like, would you take Kirk Cousins to be, the head of your franchise? And it's like, no, probably not. But it's like, well, then who else is, available for you to kind of, make your king? And it's a crazy league. I mean, I feel like, we watch a lot of these runs over, 3 to 5 years for certain teams. And it's like, the playoffs, it always comes down to like 5 to 6 teams for the most part, because we're always looking left and right, like which quarterback's going to step up to take that team to the next level. And like, we just consistently find the Patrick Mahomes, the Joe Burrows, the Josh Allens, like in the running for titles. Jalen Hurts, might be that next guy. I really love, his game. It's just like, it's tough, man. Once you get that QB1, I mean, you've got 5 to 10 years of window to just enjoy, as a franchise, it seems.
Yeah. And more to add on that, I forget, there was some sort of, I don't want to say study, but there's some analytics out there, right? It's like, if you don't win, within the first 5 years of when you were drafted as a quarterback, I think it's like, there really hasn't been too many quarterbacks that actually have won a championship since then. So it's like, all right, Dak Prescott's been in the league for a while now. Like, is he ever going to be the person? If that's the case, and utilizing that data point, then it's like, all right, is there going to be a time to move on from Dak? Because how long are we going to have Micah Parsons on this team, and everybody else on their Diggs, etc. Van Der Esch? Like, how long are we going to have these players that we can have a good defense? And then do we need to make a change at quarterback, right? I think that's maybe where the Dallas Cowboys are probably going at is, all right, we got Dak, but if he's not the guy, if he hasn't won now, will he ever be the guy? I think that's maybe what a lot of, the front office is probably thinking right now.
Yeah. I don't think Dak is the guy. I just don't think that Prescott is I don't think he's a franchise quarterback. I just don't think he is. I don't think he ever will be one. He's good, but when it comes down to it, he just can't get it done. You need guys that can get it done. And that's going to make other franchise players like Micah Parsons and like you said, Trevon Diggs, those guys, do they even want to keep playing here because we keep, we're supposed to have this great team, but once we keep getting to the postseason every year, we can't do anything because our offense is not producing. So that at what point do you question that? I think Dallas should be just keeping that in the back of their minds that, at some point we need to have a contingency plan here. So, moving on to our next segment, guys. I want you guys to give me your defensive rookie of the year predictions for this year. I'll give you mine as well. But I just want to hear what you guys think. Who's going to win that award?
Yeah, I'm punting to Wayne right away.
I was about to punt to you, bro. Oh, man. Defensive rookie of the year? Oh, that's going to be a tough one. You know what? Pat, I'll give you props here, I think, right? Jalen Carter. I think, hey, look, he, dropped down in the draft, but he has all his off-field issues or whatever, that's going on there. But you put him in that room, right? It has all the talent in the world, but you put him in that room with familiar faces, right? With Jordan Davis, with Dean, and all the other Georgia players that they've gotten. I feel like he's set up really well for success there. On top of, learning from Fletcher Cox and having already enough talent around him that he's not going to be like double team or triple team. Like if we were to go, with the Bears, right? I think with what Pat wanted, right? So why not Jalen Carter? Maybe gets like 7-8 sacks out of the DT positions, gets a couple of tackles for loss, etc. Maybe that'll prop him up for defensive rookie of the year. And hey, by the way, I picked Sauce Gardner last season, so I feel like I have a pretty decent track record of picking defensive rookie of the year. So yeah, I'll go roll with Jalen Carter here.
Man, it always feels like it's got to be an edge or a secondary player in some way, right. Usually a cornerback. Wayne got me last year for sure. I think I took the edge rusher in Trayvon Walker, and Wayne took Sauce. But man, do I play your game? I'm like trying to figure this out because there's two guys that really stand out for me, and one that's kind of a sleeper. But I think if I had to put my money down today, I think just given the way the team is set up and how comfy he's going to be in his role, Devon Witherspoon as a cornerback for the Seattle Seahawks is just set up so perfectly to have 7 to 8 interceptions. If he, truly is like, being targeted, I feel like there's going to be, a lot of maybe taking the pressure away from, how would I put this? Like pushing the ball away from a Tariq Woolen covered man and trying to, test Devon Witherspoon in all sorts of ways. I mean, Arizona, St. Louis, playing a couple games there. Maybe you get a pick or two in those games. I mean, I could see him just, kind of sitting nicely if he's, more in coverage. I don't know if they'll have him going as much man on man, but in general, that's probably my pick if I had to put my money down. I also just think the opportunity that Will Anderson has in front of him this year, just being like the captain of the defense, Houston investing so many resources to, obviously bring him in to be their guy for the future. It's like they're setting him up to be, their franchise, defenseman, kind of like a Micah Parsons. So it's like if he does live up to all the hype that they have on him, like that'll be super interesting. And I think he's got the most opportunity there to really eat. My sleeper is for the Patriots, Christian Gonzalez. I just think that's like, I think Devon Witherspoon and him were like 1 and 2 for the cornerbacks in the draft this year. And it's like you put him with Bill Belichick. And again, like, having so much attention maybe taken off him and, just kind of learning from a guy like Belichick and the defenses he's put together. It's like, that's a really nice situation for a rookie to walk into. So Witherspoon's my guy, but those are just some thoughts.
Okay. Yeah. And you actually took mine.
Sorry.
I had Devin Witherspoon as my defensive rookie of the year. I mean, the dude, he's got good size. He's he's physical. I like this play coming out of, Illinois. I think he's a great player. I think, like you said, with all that attention with Woolen on the other side, it's like, so I feel like he's going to get a lot of passes thrown his way. I think he'll have some picks, and he's very instinctful as well. And he's not afraid to come up and tackle either. You have to be playing in that Seattle defense. especially in the secondary. You got to be able to come up and be physical, make tackles. That's how Pete Carroll runs his defense. So, people were talking about like the Seahawks. Like, could this possibly be leading into the next Legion of Boom? Like, could we possibly be seeing another Legion of Boom coming? I don't know. That one before was pretty special. So, yeah. But I mean, hey, who knows? I mean, I say the Seahawks could make a little bit of noise this year. I don't know about winning the West, but I mean, possibly.
Yeah, I think they had the best draft last season, and I think this season, I called out. I think I said they had the best draft of this previous season. Or this previous draft. I feel like with Witherspoon, JSN, so I feel like they can take some steps there. Are they maybe a little weak on the defensive line? A little bit here and there, I feel like, but I think that they're switching to more of a 3-4. It sounds like, so maybe a little bit of a hybrid. So I feel like they didn't add too many big things on the defensive line, but I feel like they still have enough young talent there to make a little bit of a ruckus there. I feel like so. Yeah, I definitely like where the Seahawks are going in general, and yeah, maybe they do create another Legion of Boom with Woolen now and Witherspoon there. So it can definitely make sense there. Pete Carroll, former defensive back, we keep on forgetting that too. So yeah.
So Pat, your thoughts on the Seahawks? Can they make some noise this year?
They can definitely make noise. I mean, I was completely floored at how good their season was last year. I mean, I didn't have a lot of confidence in Geno Smith to kind of take the reins from Russell Wilson. And I mean, he just shattered all expectations in my opinion. And he really showed out. I mean, congrats to him because he's obviously had a tougher first half of his career and he just kind of found a way to settle in there, become a leader, obviously mature, and, still had game. And it was fun to watch him put it on display. So, I mean, now you add JSN, to his offense, and you've obviously got, pretty solid defense there, some great coaching. It's like, that's a good playoff football team to me. I mean, I feel like pretty confident saying I can see them going to the playoffs this year. And, Cardinals, Rams are obviously in somewhat of a rebuild situation for both of those, teams. And like we were talking about, the NFC is pretty weak. I mean, it doesn't have like the type of depth that it's used to having. I mean, the NFC South is one of those divisions where, I mean, maybe 8 wins, 9 wins gets you, the division crown this year. So, NFC North, we're talking about the Lions as maybe the best roster in the division. And it's just like, we never talk about that. So I just, Seahawks look good. I'm for them. What's their ceiling? Can they push for a conference title, game? Maybe. But we'll just have to see. But I've got hope in them.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, and like you said, the Rams and the Cardinals are like, they're just not, they're like you said, rebuilding. I think they're not going to make any noise for another couple of years. They got to get franchise quarterbacks in there, particularly the Cardinals. A lot of people are talking Caleb Williams possibly being the guy. We'll see how that goes next year. But for right now, the 49ers are in a situation right now with the quarterbacks, just crazy. And it's like, we don't know who's going to be healthy. Trey Lance. I think the Seahawks have potential to possibly take the West this year. I think they could from the 49ers if their quarterback situation isn't figured out. And, for their sake, they got to have it figured out. But yeah, it'll be an interesting season, guys. I think this will be one of those years, who knows? I'm wanting to see if the Chiefs can be knocked off for once. I don't know about that, but we'll see. So just, we'll see how that goes. But guys, any last thoughts before we get off?
I mean, I like your bold pick there with Seattle winning the West. I mean, you're right. I mean, we saw Brock Purdy have an amazing second half. We don't know what the Trey Lance situation is. I'm imagining Purdy gets the job first and then Lance is competing if there's any sort of stumbles along the way. And it's like, I mean, they have an awesome offense, but McCaffrey is, kind of like Saquon Barkley and others. It's like, you don't really know what you're getting year in, year out. So McCaffrey goes down. What do the Niners have still? I mean, Samuel and Kittle is nice, but, the younger quarterback and maybe some question marks. I don't know. You might be onto something, but I don't know. Wayne, did you have any strong takes either on that or for final thoughts to kick it off? I didn't have anything burning within me just off the bat.
I mean, all I can think about, hey, the Bears, I think they'll win the NFC North, straightforward, I feel like. So with Justin Fields now with, kind of a team behind him with an offense, with DJ Moore and kind of a revitalized offensive line, I think they'll definitely make strides there. And then, defense, they made some strides in offseason pickups on the linebacker core, defense secondary, and then, on the defensive line, I think they're going to maybe add a free agent here and there, either by a trade or free agent. Hey, maybe Chase Young, we'll see. But so I'm definitely bullish on the Bears there. But yeah, I definitely agree. I think with Seattle, I feel like they're headed the right way. They got the right coaching. They got, a solid defense there. And that wide receiver core, right now, I don't think there's a better wide receiver core, in my opinion, than what is in Seattle right now with JSN at the slot, which, that's where he rolled. And, people forget, right? It's like he broke the Ohio State wide receiver record, right? But he had 2 first-round picks ahead of him in the depth chart with Jarrett Wilson and Chris Olave. So it's like, this guy is good out of the slot. So, and then, you also got this monstrosity that is DJ Metcalf right there, runs like a 4.3 and is like, 6'4", 230 and all that. And then Tyler Lockett, always underappreciated, but gets those yards, right? So I definitely am bullish, I feel like, on the Seattle Seahawks and what they're doing. And then, a secondary that could be the second Legion of Boom there. So, sorry, 49ers fans, but I feel like I'm kind of leaning on, in terms of a better season, I'm going to pick the Seahawks over the Niners there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Seahawks really always had really good receivers. I don't know, it's just weird. Even Doug Baldwin, those guys like Tyler Lockett, they've always had really good receivers. So I don't know. That's something I've noticed, but we'll see what happens. But Patrick, Wayne, thank you guys for joining me on Jays with Down tonight. It was a pleasure talking with you guys.